When you hear the word fascism, what do you think of? Hitler? Mussolini? That's what most people think of when they hear it, including me before this speech. But most people struggle to truly define the word. According to Robert Paxton, a professor at Columbia University, fascism is described as a form of political practice distinctive to the 20th century that arouses popular enthusiasm by sophisticated propaganda techniques for an anti-liberal, anti-socialist, violently exclusionary, expansionist, nationalist agenda. How many of you are interested in learning about the true definition of fascism? Because believe it or not, according to an article written by Jeffrey Kane in 2019, Nazi Germany never even defined itself as a fascist state. Today, I'll be discussing the definition of fascism, the characteristics, and a brief history of it. To start off, let's define it. Many people struggle to define the ideology. Hitler and Mussolini produced documents before they even came to power, and this interfered with the definitions of fascism. Many people instantly associate Nazi Germany with fascism. And according to Zeev Sternhell, fascism is just a form of extreme nationalism. Fascism has an economic policy known as corporatism. The state comes before the individual, and according to Fee.org, Mussolini believed it was unnatural for the government to protect individual rights. Along with this corporatism had a planned industrial harmony, which means the interactions between the economy and the government should be coordinated by a central board of directors. Fascism is led by a strict authoritarian dictatorship, and this ideology requires a single leader who has complete control over every aspect of society and government. This leader's main goal is to revive a nation that is in the midst of a crisis. Typically, fascism arises in a country that was once a supreme power, and then the dictator implements changes that he thinks will revive it from the crisis they're in. Now that I have explained the main characteristics of fascism, here is some history on the ideology. The most famous and well-known fascist country was Mussolini's fascist Italy. Benito Mussolini, the dictator, turned Italy into a fascist state. And according to BBC News in 1922, fascist leader Benito Mussolini forms government after 3 years of political and economic unrest, and then he established an authoritarian system. 14 years after Mussolini established this system, he formed an alliance with Adolf Hitler and Nazi Germany. And then in 1945, after the war, Mussolini was executed after being rescued from a prison that he was captured in. Following this, Italy signed a peace treaty and the fascist state ceased to exist. Along with fascist Italy, Nazi Germany was also a supreme power at the time. Nazism is seen as a kind of form of fascism because of characteristics they share. And according to dictionary.com, both fascism and Nazism reject democracy and liberalism as ideologies and instead embrace the concept of a nationalist state. After Hitler took control of Germany and changed it, the economy stayed capitalistic, but with more government practices in production, or presence in production. Companies were sometimes told how much to produce and what price to sell them at due to the government interfering with the economy. The education system was also extremely impacted under Hitler's rule. Teachers who criticized and did not teach good things about Nazi Germany were reported and sent away to training camps, or most of the time they were never seen again. The history of fascism is extremely important in understanding the concept. It was a very prevalent ideology in Europe during World War II. Now that the history has been discussed, let us move on to what it was like to live in a fascist society. People who live in a fascist country have almost no personal life. Everything is controlled by the government. People were always being monitored in conversations and the actions they take in fascist Italy. There was a secret police called the OVRA, who benefited from their power and were not monitored as much as others. According to Swansea University, the OVRA secret police, which was created in 1927, were now entrusted with the task of rooting out political opposition and controlling the population. The government used fear to create a new society, and people who lived there were constantly living in fear. Propaganda was everywhere and furthers the control that the government has. Extreme nationalism is also promoted, and if someone is not glorifying the state, they are to be punished, normally by execution or going to a training camp. Fascists believe that militarism and strength is how other nations will see them as a supreme power. Men are expected to grow up and to be warriors, while women are looked down upon and expected to be subservient to men. According to the Constitutional Rights Foundation, fascists believe the state can survive only if it successfully proves its military superiority in war. Let's review fascism and what we've discussed today. Today I discussed the true definition and characteristics of fascism. I discussed how it is a very hard word to define, and even experts struggle with it. I also discussed the history of fascism and the role it played in Italy and Germany. Along with this, life in a fascist society was also discussed. From now on, when you come across the topic fascism, you will know the different characteristics and the history of it. You will also be able to define it unlike many others, and be able to explain what a true fascist society is. Thank you.